Russ? Are there any changes from committee members to the proposed agenda for today? Seeing and hearing none, the agenda is approved. And then Joe, could you pull the meeting minutes up from our December 6th meeting? Oh, Bill, go ahead, Bill.
Just a minor change needed in the minutes. Under executive committee, Gina Mitteco is identified as Ramsey County, and although we would love to have her working in Ramsey County, she's Dakota County.
Oh, good catch. Thank you, Bill.
I was hoping you'd let that slide, Bill.
Any other questions or comments on the meeting minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the amended meeting minutes.
So moved. Elaine Kutsukos.
Thank you, Elaine. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. There's a first and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call.
Anoka County, McPherson. Aye. Carver County, Rob Gent. Or anybody. Dakota County, Laborie.
Aye.
Hennepin County, Ellos.
Aye.
Ramsey County, Isaacson.
Aye.
Scott County, Jensen.
Aye.
Washington County, Leitner.
Maddie Dahlheimer as alternate for Leitner, and I'll abstain.
7W, Witter.
I'll abstain.
Tab, Kotsukos.
Aye.
MTS, Henniker.
Aye.
Community Development, Michael Larson. Or Boylan. Metro Transit, Harrington.
Aye.
MnDOT Metro, Tag, I believe.
Aye.
MPCA, AO. Matt, Reef.
I will abstain. I wasn't there in December.
Mac, Reef. Suburban Transit, Fighton.
Aye.
Freight, Meyer.
Aye.
Deed, Eddie. Bicycle, Sabota.
Aye.
Pedestrian, Turner Bargain.
Abstain.
Bloomington, Keel.
Aye.
Kenhasson, Howley.
Aye.
Lakeville, Omi.
Aye.
Eden Prairie, Schulz.
I will abstain.
Fridley, Kozlucher. Or Brodhaig. Maple Grove, Ruiz.
It's Brooklyn Park, Ruiz, and I will say aye.
Thank you. I have my old list, part of it anyway.
Thanks.
Plymouth, Thompson. West St. Paul, Beckwith.
Aye.
Minneapolis Engineering, Hager.
Aye.
Planning, Mail.
Aye.
St. Paul Engineering, Peterson, Nick Peterson.
Aye.
And St. Paul Planning, Dermody.
Aye.
That's it, and easy quorum.
All right, so the meeting minutes are approved as amended. Is there anyone from the public here to address the committee today?
Not that has been informed to us.
Seeing none, then we'll move to the tab report, Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. Tab met on December 20th. For the chair's report, Jim Hovland reported on the Metropolitan Council Governance Task Force. They are holding listening sessions throughout the region, and those might have happened already in December. They are considering should the structure of the Metropolitan Council change, and if so, how. Hovland also recognized outgoing TAB members Matt Hollinshead, Randy Malichnik, and Mitra Jalali, and alternates Stephanie Alexander and Evan Rowe. Hovland requested that TAB members indicate by the end of December if they're interested in serving on the TAB Executive Committee for 2024. And then at the TAB Executive Committee, there was discussion on the formation of the policy work group and subject groups for the next regional solicitation. There will also be discussion on forming an active transportation subgroup made up of TAB and TAC members. And this information will be presented at the January TAB meeting. For the MnDOT report, Sheila Kalpe submitted a report that MnDOT is still in the process of formally announcing who the new district engineer will be. They're hopeful the announcement will be made next week and that the individual would start mid-January. And also the position that April Crockett had at MnDOT Metrojestic has been posted, and that posting will close shortly after the new year. And in the interim, Brad Larson will be filling that role. For the MPCA, Frank Kolash reported they are currently taking comments for the Volkswagen settlement spending, and the comments are available until January 15th. That plan will determine how they will spend the funds for the last part of the VW settlement. And they are currently reviewing submissions they received for the Climate Pollution Reduction Implementation Grant. For the Metropolitan Airports Commission report, Carl Crimmins reported that this year projected passengers would be at 92% of the 2019 level. And in 2024, they are projecting 98%. And let's see, there's a new additional cell phone lot on Post Road with 97 spaces. And the transportation network companies will have a new area for loading and unloading with 50 spaces. And then Terminal 2 is adding 11 gates in the next 10 years, with 2 being added in 2024. For the Metropolitan Council report, Deb Barber reported on the TPP workgroup progress, and Metro Transit is implementing programs from the Transportation Omnibus Bill and Council Safety and Security Action Plan. And there is currently a survey out by the MTS on the regional solicitation on how the public would like to see the transportation dollars distributed among the different categories. And that budget exercise is open through January 31st. The Suburban Transit Association, Gary Hansen, reported that the demand for Maple Grove Transit My Ride continues to grow. And the goal is to expand service hours and area to help employers meet workforce transportation needs, but vehicle procurement challenges are slowing the delivery timeline. Express ridership is slowly rebounding. 2 reverse commute express trips in the AM and PM are being offered to make the first mile, last mile connections. Southwest Transit will have record prime microtransit ridership this year, expecting a 30% increase over last year. And then MVTA conducted its annual Stuff the Bus campaign and had a record amount of food and cash donations in 2 weeks. For the business items, TAB approved the Streamlined tip amendment for 6 project adjustments that came through TAC. They also approved the Streamlined tip amendment for 5 new projects, plus the additional funding for 1 previous project. They approved the review of the Metropolitan Airports Commission Capital Improvement Program. And they also heard any information on the carbon reduction toolkit. I think that's on today's TAC agenda as an info item. And that's what I have for the TAB report.
Thank you, Elaine. And I'll just add, for those who might be tracking the TAB agendas and discussions, I think February will be a very interesting TAB meeting. Amy Benowitz is planning to make a presentation around the various funding sources that are in play here in the region for TAB. So I think that will be it promises to be a very informative session. And then before the break, I had sent out an email asking for your thoughts and input on what it means for local agencies to federalize a project. And state aid was looking to come and present an update to TAB on how they are doing in delivering on the federal program that we have. That is now proposed to happen probably in April. So if you're tracking that conversation as well, you can kind of plan accordingly if you want to tune in for that. Any questions for Elaine on the TAB report? Seeing none, then we will move to committee reports. So executive committee did meet this morning. And we have one action item, another set of streamlined tip amendments, and Joe will run through those for the group. Hi, Joe.
Okay, will do. So I guess in comparison to recent times, this is a fairly slow month. 3 requests here, and shoot, I want to increase the size, but my here we go. All right, so here we go. This first one is from MnDOT, and it's a reduction in project length from 5.1 miles to 4.5 miles for a project on Minnesota Highway 13 signs and catch basin reinforcement in Roseville, Savage, and Burnsville. It's a state-funded project, so there's no regional solicitation funds. I was asked at or after funding and programming where the reduction in length is, and the answer is there really isn't one. It's sort of almost a correction. When the project team scoped it, they used these points, but it doesn't, per the way the project's going, it doesn't really use these points. So it's a pretty mild, minor change. The second one, MnDOT's requesting a cost increase in the addition of TMS, Transportation Management Service, for its Minnesota 36 Millen Overlay Auxiliary Lane Guardrail Replacement, ADA Improvement, and RAP Reconstruction Project. The total cost increase would be from $13.8 million to $16.8 million. Project is regionally significant, but this is just basically a cost increase and a minor addition of TMS, so it doesn't require the full public comment period process. It's funded through NHPP, which is not a regional solicitation piece. And the TMS is really, I don't even think it would necessitate a tip amendment, but the cost does. So that's really the primary thing we're looking at here. Map. And finally, this one, MnDOT's requesting removal of indefinite delivery / indefinite quantity IDIQ designation, along with a cost increase for its district-wide bituminous pavement crack treatments project. This is funded with Surface Transportation Block Grant Program funds that are not programmed through the regional solicitation. They're just programmed directly by MnDOT. I don't exactly know what IDIQ is. Somebody wants to chime in, that's great, but it's kind of an administrative delivery process that's being changed, and it doesn't particularly matter to what's going on here. It's just a district-wide crack repair project that needs to be rectified in the tip. That I'd stand for questions.
I can
Any
chime in on
questions?
the IDIQ. It's a contracting process we use really for kind of indefinite projects where maybe we're doing seals on bridges or something. We don't necessarily have the quantity, and so we're doing that over the course of a summer on different bridges. And we recently had kind of a policy change where we can't use federal funds for IDIQ, so we shifted this work to a letting.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any further questions for Joe on these 3 tip amendments? We'll take them as a single motion though. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve these items?
So
Madam Chair,
moved.
this is Joe with Anoka. I'll second it then.
Okay, I think Brian was the first and Joe was the second.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call.
McPherson.
Aye.
Carver County here yet? Labrie.
Aye.
Ellos.
Aye.
Isaacson.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Dolheimer.
Aye.
Witter.
Aye.
Sukos.
Aye.
Hinniker,
Aye.
Haig,
Aye.
AO,
Aye.
Reef,
Aye.
Fighton,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Sabota,
Aye.
Turner Bargan,
Aye.
Keel,
Aye.
Howley,
Aye.
Omi,
Aye.
Scholes,
Aye.
Ruiz,
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Hager,
Aye.
Mayel,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Dermody.
Aye.
Anybody I missed that I didn't catch in the first call?
Jim Kislucher, Fridley, aye.
You.
All right, that item is approved and we will move on to the planning subcommittee and TPP technical working group. Gina.
Good morning, and I apologize. I'm a little under the weather and my voice is almost gone. So I'll try to get through this quickly. At the December 14th TAC Planning Committee, we had one action item, which was to review the 2024 safety performance targets, which I believe Jed will be presenting here to TAC. The committee did recommend moving that on for approval. And then the TPP work group had a couple of presentations just on updates to the schedule. There were 3 chapters that were reviewed the previous month, so staff went through kind of the main highlights and themes from those chapter reviews. And the committee is currently working on reviews of the highway and finance chapters. Those are due Thursday. And up next, we will be reviewing the transit, aviation, and freight chapters. And that is all I have for the TAC planning and TPP work group.
Thank you, Gina. I hope you feel better soon. Jed, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sorry, in a new conference room here and trying to figure out how to unmute. Hi, my name's Jed Hanson. I believe most members of the committee are familiar with me here. I am going to present today on adoption of the safety performance management targets. So I'm going to run through the federal requirements for this measure, the methodology that the Metropolitan Council has used since 2021, the proposed targets for adoption, as well as a brief assessment of recent performance. So these performance measures have a dual purpose of informing planning and programming to reduce fatal and serious injuries and to track performance of the Federal Highway Safety Improvement Program. State departments of transportation and metropolitan planning organizations are both required to establish targets for 5 different measures: the total number of fatal and serious injuries each, the respective rates of those per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and a combined measure of non-motorized fatal and serious injuries. Metropolitan planning organizations have a specific set of requirements for these measures. They must set one for each of the 5 measures. They can take one of 2 options, and I might say there's a third sub-option in here. So you can establish targets that are specific to the metropolitan planning area, or agree to support state DOT targets, and some combine that by applying the state DOT method to the metro area. We used to do that prior to 2021, and then in 2021 started using our own regional method. Metropolitan planning organizations are not assessed or penalized by the Federal Highway Administration for failing to meet targets. However, state DOTs do have an accountability measure in there, and performance against the targets can affect how HSIP funds are allocated. These targets require annual adoption by February 27th. The target method that we use was developed in 2021 through engagement with an ad hoc safety targets working group that we formed on direction of the Metropolitan Council. Previously, we were using a regional application of MnDOT's methodology to set targets. However, there was a potential that if actual safety performance were to rise for a period of years, that it could result in increasing targets. And at the time, policymakers viewed that increasing targets is not consistent with a long-term goal of 0 deaths and fatalities. So this methodology bases the targets off of a regional share of the Minnesota Strategic Highway Safety Plan goals, which sets a statewide goal of no more than 225 traffic deaths and 980 serious injuries by 2025. And we have imputed that to mean that the regional share would be no more than 74 traffic deaths, 464 serious injuries, and 115 pedestrian and bicycle traffic deaths and serious injuries by 2025. We're proposing to continue this method into 2024, which reduces the targets annually to match that regional share of the state goals. That amounts to reducing the targets on the straight line by 8 fatalities, 69 serious injuries, and 17 non-motorized fatal and serious injuries each time we come to adopt the targets. So on this slide, you will see highlighted on the gray row here, the proposed targets that are being considered for adoption today, and the historical past 3 years of targets that were set using this method. And for illustrative purposes, what if this method were to continue, the targets may look like in 2025. So today we are considering to adopt an all fatalities target of 82, a fatality rate of 0.29 per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, 532 serious injuries, 1.89 serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and 131 combined non-motorized fatal and serious injuries. For background information, we have provided in the slide deck MnDOT statewide targets. They have held all of their targets flat for the past 3 years, and the fatalities targets have been held flat for the past 4 years. This slide deck has some detailed information on recent years' performance. This table here has a preliminary look at 2023 data. At this point in time, we don't have year-end data as we're only a few days into the new year. It is our hope to provide the most current data to TAB. If we can get this refreshed in time, though, it's often a pretty close turnaround here. But currently, unfortunately, we're not on track to meet our targets. We have not for the past several years. We saw a regression in safety performance, as we all know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, though I will note back in 2020, we were quite close to where we started when we embarked on this, this method. The fatalities were slightly over the target. Serious injuries were beneath the target on the total number, and the non-motorized target was being met. To describe the trend based off of the data we know year to date, it does appear that safety performance is reversing its upwards trend from the COVID-19 pandemic. However, it does remain elevated over pre-pandemic conditions. For all fatalities, the light orange line there represents where we are January through October of this year, and the dashed line represents where we expect year-end fatalities to end up based off of trends and seasonality of crashes. It is a similar story for serious injuries. It appears they are roughly holding flat from their peak from 2022. This chart also shows how we were meeting this target and how the trend was somewhat achievable prior to pandemic conditions, though we've experienced a regression here. And the trend is quite similar on the non-motorized fatal and serious injuries. This table, which I won't read in detail, disaggregates those pedestrian and bicyclist figures from the total. I'll note that the data in this table is only for the 7-county metro area through 2023. Our target setting does cover the whole metropolitan planning area, but we're able to provide this short-term analysis, at least for the 7-county area. In 2022, we did see an improvement on most of these measures over 2021. However, I'll note compared to the 3-year average, we do remain elevated over the pre-COVID condition, with the exception of bicyclist fatalities, though a change of one fatal crash can shift that quite a bit, since those are thankfully quite rare. However, bicyclist serious injuries do remain quite elevated in contrast. So ultimately, these targets are a frame for assessing our region's performance. It isn't the substantive work that the MPO and our regional partners do to advance safety. To summarize some of the activities that are supporting improving our regional performance on these measures, we've adopted, or we have a draft working objective for the 2050 Transportation Policy Plan that states people do not die or face life-changing injuries when using any form of transportation. This objective is supported by draft safety policies and actions that were created through a special work group and 3 broad stakeholder workshops, including actions related to adoption of a safe system approach. We're also currently undergoing a regional safety action plan, which will include recommendations for the TPP as well as programmatic recommendations. The study teams are currently reviewing preliminary findings and methodologies for a regional identification of high injury streets, a summary of crash trends, and a systemic analysis of crash risks. With that, I will conclude and stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jed. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you. So on slides, I think it's 11 and 12, the line chart that shows crashes over time between 2016 and 2023, and it went way down in 2020. And one could presume that it went way down in 2020 statistically because everyone was asked to stay home for quite a while. And that probably reduced the number of trips, and then went back up again when people started traveling more. I think it'd be helpful to have a map showing where these crashes and serious injuries occur in the 7-county metro area, because it'd be interesting to see if of the 100 crashes, they're on Highway 12 out in Wayzata versus on Hennepin Avenue in Minneapolis, and let's just get a sense of scale for where these things occur, because it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all type solution for if it's road design versus is it behavior changes that have changed. And it seems to me that's a significant part of what we've seen in the last couple of years, is people being a little bit more reckless with how they drive, as much as what the design of the roadway infrastructure is. And then the other comment I'll make is, I think on the next slide, the bicycle and pedestrian injuries, actually on the table where you have the percentages, they look pretty similar to 2017 to 19 averages when you think about the whole number there. So they don't seem like they're significantly different. But again, it really depends on where they are, because obviously a pedestrian and bicycle collision is much more serious than a vehicle to vehicle collision. So if we knew where they were, then we could have a better understanding of what are the right tactics for this. So I just think as we set goals, it's nice to say we're going to set a goal, it's going to be lower, and that's great. But how do we actually get to achieving that goal? And are there particular strategies that might be of better value than just saying, we've got this great goal and we're going to see if we can meet it? Are there geographies or situations that are worth tackling sooner, or new strategies, or even behavior changes that might help that number go down? Thanks.
Chair Hager, Adam, thank you for those comments. I will note that some of those geospatial analyses are underway as part of that regional safety action plan. They're in draft form and not ready to be shared, but I do hope some of those insights can be brought back to the committee at a future date.
Okay.
So, Chair, if I could follow up then,
Go ahead, Adam.
then how are we setting the goal now before we have that information?
Yes, so this goal is based off of the Minnesota Strategic Highway Safety Plan. So that was a safety planning effort that was intended for use by a broad range of transportation stakeholders, from local governments to regional governments to state government. While I'm not as familiar with the detail and how that goal was set, our targets are essentially based off of that goal. And if we were to meet the statewide goal, these targets are aligned with the progress we would be needing to make to meet that goal.
So I'll just say that that's nice, and hopefully we can identify particular elements that actually achieve that goal in some areas or all areas as we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
Chair Hager, Jed, just wanted to kind of clarify. You mentioned state goals being no more than the target, and I don't think there's anything explicit in the presentation or the agenda item that talks about the metro goals being no more than the target, but I'm presuming that that's the case. Just want you to affirm that if that's so.
Go ahead,
Could
Jed.
you clarify that question? I'm not certain what you mean by the goal not being more than the target.
I think the target values are shown, and the target values are establishing the goal, but I think the goal is actually no more than the target value. Am I correct in that?
Okay, let me switch back to a slide here. So I'll point out the 2025 suggested target here. So the Minnesota Strategic Highway Safety Plan has a 2025 goal of no more than, I believe it's 980 serious injuries, 225 fatalities, which if you apply it based off of a 2019 percentage of what is occurring in the metro and what is occurring statewide, this 2025 line represents what the metro's share of that goal is, and the targets are a reduced number in each successive year based off of the 2020 targets as a baseline towards reaching that goal. So this is, the proposed target is higher than the goal that is set in that plan, but it is an interim step on the way there.
And yeah, I understand that. And I just think I'm trying to, make a very simple point here that the goal is, we haven't failed in our goal if, say, in 2024, all fatalities are 81, correct?
No, correct. Yes, like we would, I think we would all be very thankful if safety performance were better than these targets.
Thank you.
Craig.
Yeah, mine was on the targets as well. I thought I've heard, and maybe I misheard that MnDOT's has been flat, their target, I guess.
Yes.
Why are we then not considering being flat if MnDOT's was flat? Because if we're not achieving something already, or having something that even is achievable, why do we keep lowering it? That's just my question on that. And
So the safety targets working group that had met in the previous 2 years that developed this method did not meet this year. When they last met, they had reached the conclusion that this method could continue until the next strategic highway safety plan update or other updated long-range planning effort, and then we could reevaluate the target setting method. So we did not consider a different method this year. These are intended to measure our progress towards reaching a long-range goal, though, so I believe that's the rationale for continuing to set a declining target. So that feedback is noted.
thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my video is not going to work this morning, so I don't have any specific questions necessarily, but just wanted to state, I guess, for the record, as it were, that appreciate the work that Met Council has done on this to reflect sort of like a tailored regional version of these performance measures and targets. And just as the pedestrian modal rep, just want to state that there's just a lot of discomfort generally with coming up with a performance target in transportation related to the death and or life-altering injuries of humans, of actual people. And I think just needed to say that because particularly from the vulnerable road user perspective, coming up with a number to say, you know, we're going to aim for this many people to die or be seriously injured in this period of time is just very conflicting with just feelings. And so I don't think that's you know, anything that can be corrected necessarily in this work. It's a larger transportation issue that we have, but particularly with the pedestrian and bicycle numbers and people who are more vulnerable road users, and knowing as well the facts about the overrepresentation in those serious injuries and fatalities of disadvantaged populations of people who are in those populations, that again, just there's a lot of discomfort and conflicting feelings with this, and I appreciate and understand the necessity of this nonetheless, and appreciate the work that's been done. So thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie. And I will say I agree with you, and we have talked about this over the last several years to make sure that these targets are, when they're put into the plans, they're specifically put in within the context of our overall goal is zero, whether you call it towards zero death or vision zero, whatever you want to call it. I do agree that that's very important to be understood. I'm wondering, Jed, I don't think this is a question for you. I don't know if anyone from MnDOT here can talk about this, but I'm just wondering what the status is of updating the statewide plan to look beyond that 2025 horizon that we're currently pinging to. Anybody able to answer that? Maybe not. Okay, never mind then. Oh, Heidi's here. Heidi, do you have a different comment, or are you able to answer that question?
No, all I can say, if no one from MnDOT is going to chime in, is that I do know that MnDOT is starting the process of the update of the strategic highway safety plan. So I know they're starting that. I don't have specific timelines from them yet, but that work is beginning. So
okay, cool. Thank you. I just asked because if any of you are meeting with your TAB reps or remember the conversation from last year, TAB had a very robust discussion about the safety targets a year ago when this came through. So I anticipate the same this time. And then I'm just checking my list here. Craig, is your hand up from before, or do you have another question or comment?
That.
Okay. Any further questions on this item? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
Elaine Kutsukos moves.
Thank you, Elaine. Is there a second?
Innocent AO second.
Thank you, Innocent. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify aye by roll call.
McPherson. Aye. Rob Gent. Oh, I haven't seen an Tarver yet. Oh, Lebery.
Aye.
Ellos.
Aye.
Isaacson. Gave note that he was stepping away for a second. Jensen.
Aye.
Dahlheimer.
Aye.
Witter. Witter.
I'm still here. Aye.
Thank you. Kutsukos. Elaine.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Henniker.
Aye.
Michael Larson has joined us.
Aye.
Harrington. Yeah, Harrington. Sorry.
Aye.
Tag.
Aye.
Yo.
Aye.
Reef.
Aye.
Crichton.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Sabota.
Aye.
Bargain.
Abstain.
Keel.
Aye.
Cowley.
Aye.
Omi.
Aye.
Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Lucher.
Aye.
Louise.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Hager. Mayel.
Aye.
Peterson.
Peterson, aye.
And Dermody.
Aye.
All right, that item is approved and we'll move forward. Thank you. And we will move to Funding and Programming Committee report with Michael.
Thank you, Chair Hager. Yes, the Funding and Programming Committee met here recently, and we had 3 different items that we'll be discussing today. The first being the scope change request for South St. Paul's Marie Avenue Bicycle and Pedestrian Facility Project. So this was a $1 million federal award through the Safe Routes to School program. And the city actually partnered with Dakota County on another project, which was recently completed. And that project included some of the work that was in that Safe Routes to School application. So the city is asking to retain their full federal award, and the committee agreed with that. The motion was made, it was passed unanimously. And historically, as long as the improvements are being completed as part of the project, the committee has recommended approval to retain the funds. And it should be noted that while Dakota County did complete some of those improvements, the city entered into an agreement with the county and they had a rather large cost share for that project. So it's not like the city is coming into a windfall here. It looks like a kind of a break even for them, and the improvements are getting done. So with that, I can answer any questions, or if the applicant is on, they may want to say a few things as well. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any questions on this item from committee members? Or is the applicant here and would like to say anything on this item?
Good morning, committee members. This is Nick Williams, City Engineer, City of South St. Paul. Thank you for entertaining this item. As Michael mentioned, yes, we partnered with Dakota County on with a new library project. And so we took a piece of road on 2nd and 7th and completed that work this past summer. in conjunction with that library, really to provide more parking and, better access both to the school and to the library. So that's the request. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions from committee members? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Peterson, St. Paul.
Thank you, Nick. Is there a second?
I'd second Beckwith.
Okay. Thank you, Ross. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
Pearson. Aye. Ledbury.
Aye.
Ellos.
Aye.
Isaacson. Jensen.
Aye.
Dahlheimer.
Aye.
Witter. Otsukos.
Aye. Aye.
Hinneker.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Harrington.
Aye.
Peg.
Aye.
Yo. Reef.
Aye.
Crichton.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Boda.
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Keel.
Aye.
Howley.
Aye.
Homie.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Lucher.
Aye.
Louise.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Hager.
Aye.
Mayel.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
And Dermody.
Aye.
That item is approved. Thank you, committee, and Michael, we'll go to the next one.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. The next item is the scope change request and tip amendment for the city of Inver Grove Heights for their curb ramp reconstruction project. So they were awarded roughly $250,000 through the STBT grant program. And we had a fairly good discussion at the meeting. A handful of questions were asked of the applicant. I believe it was Paul Merklowitz, the city engineer. And what's going on with this project is essentially almost all of the 30 curb ramps were installed. 2 were installed with a different project, and then 2 were proposed to be eliminated. So the 2 that were eliminated, the city did a analysis and review and determined it was in the best interest to remove kind of a mid-block pedestrian crossing and instead use adjacent intersections that are more controlled. And the committee made a motion to approve this and then also allow the city to retain the $16,000 in federal funding for those 2 eliminated ramps. I believe Carl Keel from Bloomington made the motion, and the discussion was it was rather de minimis. It wasn't a large amount, and there was a reason for the elimination. So the motion was made for the approval and the retention of the federal funding in that de minimis amount, and that passed unanimously. I can stand for any questions, and I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any questions of Michael, or is the applicant here and would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, Joe, can you scroll back up to the motion? The recommended motion is to approve this scope change with no reduction in federal funds. Any questions on the motion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve as recommended.
I'll move approval, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Is there a second?
Dahlheimer will second from Washington County.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
McPherson. Rudget. Oh, sorry. I haven't heard from them. Ludbury.
Aye.
Ellos. Isaacson, are you back? Jensen. Dahlheimer.
Aye.
Witter.
Aye.
Otsukos.
Aye.
Henniker.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Harrington. Harrington. Peg.
Aye.
Ayo.
Aye.
Reef.
Aye.
Fighton.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Sabota.
Aye.
Turner Bargan. Turner Bargan. Keel.
Aye.
Howley.
Aye.
Omi.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Blucher.
Aye.
Ruiz.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Hager.
Aye.
Mayel.
Aye.
Nick Peterson.
Aye.
And Dermody.
All right, that item is approved and will carry forward. Thank you. And our last scope change, Michael.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. Last item is the scope change request for St. Louis Park, Cedar Lake Road in Louisiana improvement project. So this was probably the most discussed item at our meeting. And this was a federal award, and the application included a cycle track along and through a quite extensive public process the city went through. There were some adjustments made where that cycle track, because it couldn't be continuous through the whole corridor, routed to two adjacent roadways, north and south, which would also better align with the pedestrian crossings over 394, which is a big barrier in this area. So there was a lot of discussion. I am going to have Joe go through a more detailed overview, perhaps with some maps and showing some different things. And I know the applicant, Deb Heiser, the Director of Engineering with St. Louis Park, I believe may want to speak. But the motion was made at the meeting to actually reduce the federal amount, which in this case would be about $170,000, because those cycle track improvements were being removed from Louisiana, which was in the original application. I think the applicant is making the case that they're still meeting the intent, it's just meeting the improvements at a different location as part of this project. So the motion was made. Again, Carl Keel Bloomington, he actually made all three motions, so he was very active at our meeting at FMP, which is great. He made the motion for approval of the scope change request, but with the reduction of the federal amount for those items that were being removed from the project, original project, and that was passed unanimously at the committee level. With that, I can turn it over to Joe, Madam Chair, if that works for you.
Thank you. Yep, go ahead, Joe.
Thanks, Chair and Chair. So at the risk of repeating a bit of what Chair Thompson said, the city is requesting a scope change to remove dedicated cycle track improvements from Louisiana Avenue, and they're providing parallel routes on Hampshire Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue. This map I'm sharing here was not in the packet. This was provided to me today, and I'm sure staff from St. Louis Park can go through it a little bit. As I understand it, the two blue lines here on Hampshire and here on, that's Pennsylvania, are the sort of diversions, if you will, from the original Louisiana paths the bikeways were to make. And this is for a project improving Louisiana Avenue and Cedar Lake Road. Cedar Lake Road is remaining intact as applied for. So they had $7 million awarded to them in 2022 in the roadway reconstruction and modernization category. The application was awarded to modernize these two streets, and they added to add a roundabout to the intersection between the two. And then also separated bike lanes, upgrading, adding sidewalks, and improving ADA access were part of the project. I'm going to go here to the scoring analysis, which is I've always stated is very difficult to do. It's very difficult, I would argue impossible, to try to determine whether or not a project, quote, would have been funded had it been approved, had it been applied for this way. But they had a 49-point cushion ahead of the highest scoring unfunded project. They did score very well in the transit, bicycle, pedestrian elements and connections, 93 out of 110. But you know, I assume some of that was on the strength of what was provided. It's not really, I don't think we're in a position to say that if originally approved like this, it would have gone down by a significant amount. So with that said, we did recommend approval of the scope change request, as did funding and programming. This leads to the discussion that tends to take more time typically than the actual approval or not approval of the scope change request, which is the funding. So in that previous item, you might have noticed the approval of the full funding amount because the math determined that would have been about $16,000 to try to retain the funding of items in that project that weren't to be completed. In this case, the math turns out to be about $170,000 based on a $290,000 reduction, and then taking the federal proportion of the full project and applying it to that $290,000. There isn't necessarily a way in policy that prescribes exactly how to address this. I think that the rationale, and members can correct me if they disagree, for that was that you are doing less, whether or not you're accommodating, whether or not we think the accommodations are equal, the physical and costly elements going into the project are reduced, and that was the rationale for the motion to reduce the federal funding by the federal portion of what's being removed. So it's sort of a different question for funding than it is for whether or not to approve the project. The removal is not going to be done elsewhere, at least not in terms of the physical and costly elements of it, even if the bikes are being accommodated elsewhere. So that was the rationale for that. And then, you know, the options were provided to remove that amount or to allow the full federal award. It's not necessarily particularly prescriptive in the policy, to be honest. So that was the motion. And with that, I would stand for questions, and I think the applicant might want to say something. And this is the map that they provided to me this morning.
Thank you, Joe. And I just want to be clear, Joe, could you scroll up to the recommended motion as it's currently typed out on the action transmittal? I just want to put this bug in committee members' ears before we bring the applicant on to share some additional information, but I do think that this recommended motion needs to be amended to be clear on what we're looking to do with the federal funds. Okay, and so yeah, I think the applicant is, oh, go ahead, Joe.
I apologize. I should have added the reduction in federal funding here, and I did not. So that's part of the original motion, and whatever happens here will end up, I will capture and will end up part of the motion when this is presented to tab.
Okay, so whoever decides to move this item, please be clear on what your intention is with the federal funds. And with that, I think the applicant's here, and I would like to give them the opportunity to share some information.
Good morning, Chair Hager and committee members. Happy New Year. It's good to see you all today. My name is Deb Heiser, and I'm the engineering director for the City of St. Louis Park. I'm not going to go over the action. I think you did all a good job of talking about it. What we're asking for today is, first of all, thank you for supporting this project and providing funding. Thank you for supporting the scope amendment. We're asking that the federal funding remain at $7 million. At the end of the day, let's just talk through the project. Louisiana Avenue is a local jurisdiction street. We've had 2 years of planning on it. The most critical portions, this has got Route 9 on it. It's got Route 673. We're improving transit. We're still providing sidewalk on the east side to provide access to those transit stops. There's a sidewalk existing on the west side. We have commercial at the node of Cedar Lake Road in Louisiana, and we felt it was critical that bikeways still have access to that commercial. So you'll see at the nodes, there is still a trail, there's still bikeway, there's still that connection. You can go to Olsberger Brewing on a bike, you can stop at Walgreens, just still be able to do those things. Just pointing out the different high density residential in the area. We have about 600 plus subsidized units in this area. Those high density residential areas are highlighted. The alternate routes are shown just north of Northside Park. You can see there's a trail that cuts through the park at that location, goes onto a low volume road, connects to a trail that will go north along the middle school and connects to Pennsylvania Avenue. That is a really low volume road and then connects up through to the existing trail bridge that goes over 394. The east side, so again, we wanted to double down here. We didn't want to say, we wanted to serve the same population. So we said, let's double down. Let's do it both sides. Let's make sure that that same population is served. So you look at the high density residential, we have Hampshire on the east side, and right near the, just north of 16th, there's, that's actually a cul-de-sac. So that's only connected by a trail. That's why it's a low volume road, very comfortable for biking, creating a bike boulevard, creating a space on a low volume, low speed road. So that's just kind of a walkthrough, the high density residential, the subsidized housing, providing that access. And bottom line, this is a roadway modernization project. The project provides $11.9 million in benefit for the region. The federal funding was $7 million, and the city's matching funds is almost $5 million. It still efficiently preserves and maintains the regional transportation system. It reduces vehicle delay. Sidewalks are going to be constructed to support the transit in the corridor. We're going to improve transit stops, bus pullouts, ADA, all of the above. The critical part is this project provides a comparable facility in all ages and all abilities within the RTBN Tier 1 corridor. So that corridor is wide. It's not just Louisiana. Louisiana is the center of it. What we're looking at is having an all ages and all abilities. And those needs vary. These are low volume roads. Hampshire and Pennsylvania have less than 450 vehicles a day. They're 20 mile an hour. The city of St. Louis Park has on our local roads a 20 mile an hour. Louisiana is is an arterial. We have that at 30 miles an hour. In order to support all ages and all abilities on Louisiana, we need to have it separated, the cycle track that we talked about with the original scope application. Louisiana has 15 to 20,000 vehicles per day. When you get up at 394, that is a bridge that was installed 35 years ago. That bridge has over 20,000 vehicles a day. So really, when you look at that barrier, how do we get people to these existing dedicated trail bridges? It connects the same destinations. I talked a little bit about that. It'll be, when it's completed in 26, we'll have that connection, not in some future date when the bridge gets widened. We deliberately created those two parallel routes, and there's a park and ride located just to the northwest corner of Wayzata Boulevard in Louisiana, just south of 394. In 2027, the city is going to be installing a bikeway on Wayzata Boulevard that'll provide a direct bikeway, all ages and all ability connection to that park and ride. We have a climate action plan goal. Forgive me, it is 646 publicly subsidized housing units in those different high density residential areas that I've labeled on the map. We have a climate action goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2040. This project promotes that. The roundabout will reduce carbon emissions, reduce vehicle delays, retain mature trees, which reduces solar generated heat. I mean, we've got a lot of beautiful big trees along Louisiana, which is part of why we heard from the community and the council that, you know, if we can achieve this with an alternate route, achieve a comparable facility and provide the same regional connections, that this is where the way we want to go. We also providing safe, convenient ways to use low carbon and no carbon travel methods by building these sidewalks. So, and again, along Louisiana, this is all single family homes. From from the south end where the trail cuts through north side park to the north end where the trails are on both sides. That is all single family residential. We want to make sure that the neighborhood can get to those transit stops along Louisiana Avenue. And so that's just kind of an overview. I don't want to take up too much of your time. At the end of the day, when compared to what this project is accomplishing, and again, keep in mind, this is a $11.9 million project, $7 million in federal funds, $5 million, about $5 million in city funds. We're reducing it. It may seem like a little, but when it comes to it, it's a project. We're still delivering the same level of RTBN connections for bikeways to the region. So we ask that it not be reduced due to the regional benefits that are still being achieved by the project as it's designed. So I appreciate your time this morning. Please let me know if you have additional questions.
Thank you, Deb. And we do have a couple of hands up. I will start with Cole.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The question, I think, for the applicant, and actually two separate questions. The first question, you had mentioned the multi-use path through the, I think it's North Side Park, and then it goes on to 22nd Street. I noticed when you get zoomed in, there's no way to actually connect from 22nd Street to the multi-use trail. And we're really interested, it's on that far left side of that dashed green line, Joe. We want to make sure that it is a high quality facility and that, so are there construction elements to improve that beyond just a sidewalk, which is, I think we would all agree, not adequate for bikes, to make that connection between 22nd Street and the multi-use trail?
I completely agree. And yes, we want to have that be a trail. We put together this map and I noticed some errors in the one we put in the application. That will be a trail. It will be that connection, that kind of throughput connection, not a sidewalk.
And then similar question, is the wayfinding, because I noticed the other connection you talked about that was on Hampshire, looks very dark. Is it going to be improved in terms of wayfinding and stuff like that?
Yes, we, as a part of every project, when we install the facility, we do have bike blades that we install to educate the bikers where we want them to go. We'll have wayfinding as a part of the design, the construction of this. We also have been working on different kiosks in the city and different ways to get the word out about getting around with our bikeways. We've been updating things on social media to make sure that the Googles know where our all ages and all abilities are. We've had some success with that, just so that we can promote our bikeways in the city.
And just one other question. If you're coming from the west and you want to go north, this redirection basically forces you to go to Louisiana up and then over and then back if you want to get back to Louisiana. Did you guys look at all at making improvements on Pennsylvania between 22nd and Cedar Lake so that it's more direct to the west of that high density housing, so that you have a more direct connection if you're heading northbound, just like at that block and a half essentially?
So let me restate. So if I'm going to zoom in, I see the words middle school. Are you talking about on 22nd at that location if you're coming from the west?
No, if you're coming on Cedar Lake where the orange dashed line is, and you wanted to turn before you hit Carroll Hurd Park, and so that you could head north earlier than having to double back, if you know what I mean.
Wonderful. So, and it's hard to show everything on the map. We actually have, so we're coming from the west and you are coming from Minnetonka, or if you're coming from west of Texas, Texas Avenue actually has a bikeway on it. So Texas is a parallel route that's just off the screen, off the map. So there is a bikeway that people could take to the north to get to Wayzata. And again, that 2027 bikeway is a part of that, going to be connecting to Texas as well. And they could get to the bridge. And what you're asking, if I'm coming from the west and I want to get to the intersection of Cedar and Lou?
No, I think you answered my question. So for the context, for those that don't know, Texas is west of the middle school. So there is an option to turn north before you get to Louisiana, so you don't have to double back, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but right now, so the city has a Connect the Park, which is a bikeway master plan, which the city council supported the construction. We've 32 miles of bikeways at approximately half-mile intervals. And we've built, I believe, 25 miles of that at this point. We're the hard ones is ones we're working on right now. Roads like Louisiana, roads that had the higher volume, trying to make that all ages and all abilities work and make those connections.
And Ms. Chair, if I will, just one comment before I turn over the next speaker. If you go a little bit north, Joe, the connection back to Louisiana is planned, and that's great. And I know the applicant spoke to that at FMP, but it's not in the project. So I think we should just acknowledge that there is an element to get back to Louisiana, and there's a major park and ride there that has a high level of transit service right there. And that's just a planned improvement, so it won't be constructed as part of this project. And I guess maybe just confirm that at the applicant that that's a planned project, not part of the project.
Was that a question for me or?
Yeah, I just confirm. I think that's true, but.
Yep. So this particular Cedar Lou is 24, 25, and 26 is the phasing, and then 27 we will be doing Wayzata Boulevard. So that is the next project. It's next.
Thanks.
Thank you, Cole. And we'll move to Bill next. Bill?
Thanks, Chair. And thanks, Deb, for this information. This background is helpful. I have a question and then a comment, if I could. The question is, do we know, is it allocated what the 290,000 is going to be spent on? If it's not this, is it going to the alternative bike improvements, or what is that going to?
Well, some of it will go to the alternative bike improvements. Certainly, we've got some trails that need to be replaced, especially on that cul-de-sac I was mentioning, as well as the replacement of the 22nd Street Trail. So again, I don't know that it's exactly the same amount for those improvements, but yes. And so then there's also additional rapid flashing beacons for pedestrian crossings that we have incorporated into the project to enhance those crossings.
Thank you. And then my comment is that while I know these direct connections on roads like this are pretty hard, we struggle with that in St. Paul too. But the alternative connections that are proposed here are longer, substantially longer, between the two main roads here and less direct, which is not ideal in either case. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Go ahead, Chad.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to the city for bringing the additional context of the benefits and the local context. I think really good to hear that the project development process is unfolding and really heard from the community, and this project is still able to, in the reconstruction category, advance climate, multimodal, and safety goals, and really those high density residential. I think that really points to maybe, as Bill was saying, it's not as direct on Louisiana, but I think it's even more direct for those the high density residential off of Louisiana through this RBTN corridor. Just want to lend my support to the scope change effort and the city retaining its full federal funding. Therefore, I'd like to start with a motion, Chair, if that would be okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'll repeat most of the motion that is there and add to the end, but that the Technical Advisory Committee recommend approval of St. Louis Park scope change request to remove the Louisiana Avenue cycle track improvements from its Cedar Lake Road and Louisiana Avenue improvements project while retaining its full federal funding amount.
Thank you. We have a motion, and is there a second?
I'll second, Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen. We have a motion and a second, and we still have hands raised. So, Chad, did you have anything else? Otherwise, I will move to the next person on the list.
That is all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. And Cole, I'm going to assume your hand is still up from before, so I'm going to move to Kyle.
Thank you, Chair. I took a look at this quite in detail to take a look at the proposed changes, and I am fine with what the proposed changes and appreciate the improvements. I think that it's good to get at least with that bridge the Louisiana Avenue Bridge is definitely a limiting factor, and it's certainly, if those other PED bridges, both sides weren't in place, I think it'd be really problematic for this. But I do support the reduction in the funding amount. But overall, I appreciate the work that the city's done on this, and I do think it's an adequate change for the bicycle and bike and ped.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Going on to Kathleen.
Thanks, Chair. Much of what I raised my hand before Chad did. Much of what Chad said were points I was going to make, and I think this reflects a lot of local planning. I support retaining the funds. It's from my context, I've been on this committee for, I don't know, less than a year, and this is the first time that a scope change has come through that there's been like discussion on whether or not to retain the funds. To me, this seems like what's being proposed is the result of additional local planning, context, looking at different resources in the community and trying to make an investment that supports community needs, locations, desires, and the different major, draws within the community. So I won't repeat what Chad said, but that was a lot of also what I was going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing if there's any other hands. Kyle, is your hand back up? No, okay. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Actually, yes. On one question for the city representative, do you know by chance how many of those mature trees on Cedar Lake Road are ash trees by chance?
I am going to phone a friend. Joe Shamla is with us today. He is actually the project engineer. I don't believe there are that many ash, but I don't want to misspeak. So Joe, I'll give you I'm going to give him some dialing music here. But if you want, I can
So I
make
don't,
sure.
I don't have exact numbers on that, but it's very few. Got a great canopy planted in, a lot of the trees were planted in 1990 era when last time the road was reconstructed. So the trees are just turning beautiful basically. So it'd be hard to cut that many trees down to install this facility.
Okay, thank you. And Bill has his hand up. Bill?
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to vote no on the motion, but I just want to emphasize, I think the project is a great project, does deserve to continue to be funded. I just support the reduction in the funding amount. But I think it's a very good project and the changes make sense. So thank you very much.
Okay. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Carl.
Madam Chair, it seems that the question for the committee, it seems a lot of support for the project and agrees that it's a great project and the changes are warranted and needed from all the community input. I think the question is, should the funding be allocated at the full amount or reduced by 170,000? Would it be appropriate to have a motion to vote on the funding portion separately, or do that and then do this in two pieces, first the funding and then the overall?
Well, currently we have a motion
on the table. So we have a motion in a second that I think we have to vote on unless we.
Or I could make a motion to amend the motion. Madam Chair, I would make a motion to amend the motion to remove to change the funding portion to remove funding in the amount of 169 plus.
I need help. Robert's Rules of Order. Joe or Elaine, I need help because we have a motion on the table that is specific to retaining the federal funds. And Carl, your motion, if I understand it, is to remove the funds, not just to separate them as actions?
Yes, I was trying to work within, I guess we could go through and vote on the motion as it's been made. And then if it fails, we would have a new motion, I guess. That'd be appropriate too.
Yeah,
I think I think what Carl's trying to do is an option. Another option would be if a original motion wanted to remove the motion, or what he just said, which is to vote on this on the original motion, and if it doesn't pass, then you move on. So his movement to amend would be okay. In fact, he's made that motion. We haven't had a second, but
Correct. So the motion is to approve it and keep the funding. And Carl can make the amendment to remove the funding. And then someone would second that. The group would vote on the amendment. And depending on whether it passes or fails, then vote on the subsequent motion with or without the funding. So in a way, that's also separating it by doing it that way. So if he does amend it, that.
So, but the amendment isn't to change the motion in terms of the funding, it's just to remove reference to the funding, right?
I guess
Carl,
mine
that-
is to change the portion of the motion that said retain full federal funding to remove federal funding in the amount of whatever it was, $169,000.
Okay, so I view that as a different motion, not an amendment to the current motion on the floor.
All right, I'll remove my amended suggestion.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second, and we have two more hands raised. So let's go there next. Go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, I was going to kind of give some background on the policy itself with scope changes historically, the Technical Advisory Committee has removed funding when elements are removed. TAC has been approving the scope changes if the element that's removed has been completed by another entity. In this case, the part that's being removed is not being completed, it's being changed. So that's the difference historically of why Funding and Programming had voted to remove the funding, because the part that was removed is not being completed, even though it's being replaced with other changes that are not part of the project.
Oh, let's be clear. And maybe Deb, you can come on and clarify, but St. Louis Park is proposing to build those parallel bicycle facilities, correct? So it's funded, it would be funded.
Yes, Madam Chair. Both the west and east are proposed to be constructed at the same time as Louisiana. Really feel it's important to have these regional connections. That was one of our goals as a part of the project. So yes.
So yeah,
okay.
So that's where when new elements are added, typically that part is the federal funding is not put on the new elements. Maybe that's where I wanted to clarify. So it's a nuance, but that was where historically, if new elements were added, federal funding wasn't eligible on the new elements.
And I guess it could be viewed as a new element, or it could be viewed as a design change.
Correct. So that's how the committee
existing
can
element.
look. So that's how the committee can look at it.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And Deb, just for clarification, along Louisiana between 22nd and 14th, which is a majority of the corridor, what will be constructed with this project? Are you going to have the existing sidewalk replaced? I see that there's sporadic sidewalk on the west portion between, looks like 22nd up to north of Franklin, and then there's swaths where there's nothing. It's just the shoulder of the road. What will be constructed on Louisiana with your project with these federal funds?
With these federal funds, we will be replacing portions of the sidewalk on the west side that need to be replaced. There is an existing sidewalk on the west side of the road. We'll also be constructing a brand new sidewalk. There currently is no facility at all on the east side of the road. And so there will be a sidewalk facility constructed. There will be a trail constructed from the north boundary of west side, or you're asking about between North Side Park, so I won't go too much into that, but yes, there is a sidewalk on the east side, and then there'll be sidewalk reconstructed on the west side where it's needed and where there's bus pullouts that we're constructing and ADA improvements.
Okay, and then Madam Chair, one more follow-up question for the applicant here. Will there be dedicated shoulders along Louisiana with this project, or is it just going to be a narrowed corridor to try and fit between the trees?
There is not dedicated shoulders. So there is not dedicated shoulders in the corridor.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to ask the same question. Thanks, Madam Chair. I was going to ask the same question that Joe asked, but one other question that I'd ask is what are the improvements on the parallel routes that are anticipated?
On the parallel routes, what we're looking to do is upgrade the trail connections between the cul-de-sacs, the dead ends, to make those be what is it, a 10-foot wide trail connecting the two. There's existing 10-foot wide trail is just built through Pennsylvania. So I'm talking through the west side. So maybe Joe, if you could put up the map. So we'll be having, on Cedar Lake Road at the roundabout, there will be a trail on the west side. There'll be a sidewalk on the east side north of Cedar Lake Road. South of Cedar Lake Road, there will be bikeway. But again, keep in mind, we have another barrier here, where the Louisiana Bridge, that's a future improvement as well. Going up through Northside Park, this is an existing trail. We will have Sharrows or Bike Boulevard striping along this area on the cul-de-sac, connecting through to the 22nd. That's a dead end. Both those sides are dead ends, connecting through to the middle school, the park, Lamplighter Pond Park, the middle school. This is a trail that was constructed as a part of Connect the Park. I believe it was 4 years ago. And then on Pennsylvania, which again is a 450 vehicle a day road. Looking at what an all ages and all abilities bikeway is, having a share the road is and this is also 20 miles an hour. So we're having share the road. The signs will be replaced to have bike blades to be able to guide people through where the bike route goes. And that's the west side. On the east side at Hampshire, again, the bike blades will be installed on Hampshire Avenue itself. It'll be a shared on-street facility. Hampshire has less than 450 vehicles a day, so it is an all ages and all abilities design based on the volume of cars. Is a 20-mile-an-hour road. There is currently a rapid flashing beacon at Hampshire to provide safe crossing. So if you're on Cedar Lake Road on the cycle track that exists there today, that was built in 19, you'll be able to access that to get north through the corridor. And if you want to slide up, Joe, go north a little bit. Hampshire ends in a cul-de-sac, and you can see right where there's a high density residential just to the east of Hampshire. There's that little green existing trail. We are going to be rebuilding that trail so that it creates a good connection. And then also enhancing that north cul-de-sac where the high density residential to have that be a shared share of the road as well. That again is a low volume road, less than 450 vehicles a day, meets all ages and all abilities. So ADA upgrades for the trails as needed, but that is and the bike blades will be replaced to help out with our guidance.
Okay, consistent with, I think, some of the comments, including those of Carl Keel, I want to support the project and support the scope change, but struggle with the funding aspect of things. So I think the project is a bit different. That the intent is there, but the traveled length more than doubles to go north and south, and I think the type of facility is a bit different. So just want to offer that. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Nick. Cole.
Yeah, I'm on funding and programming, and I voted for the removal of the funds, but I'm going to just speak in support of keeping the funds with the project. I think they've done a really good job explaining their process. I think we should acknowledge that when projects do that and go through a very thorough planning process if they have to make a change that they weren't expecting. And because, as we've talked about, they're still trying to deliver the elements of the project in a different way. It's not like they're just removing the elements like we typically see with these scope changes where we take the money away. So I support the motion as proposed. Just wanted to go on record as saying that.
Thank you, Cole. And I see no other hands right now, so I'm going to take a moment to also express my support for the motion as currently stated, to support the scope change with no reduction in federal funds. I also believe that there's a lot of effort here to respond to community engagement and the context within this neighborhood here and how connections to important destinations are being made. And I do think there's a lot to be said about the definition of all ages and abilities as it relates to different contexts of streets. And so design is not a one size fits all solution. So I do support the current motion, which I want to make sure the whole committee is clear on the current motion on the table, which is to approve the scope change with no reduction in federal funds. And I am stalling a little bit to see if any further hands come up, but I'm not seeing any. So we will take our vote. All in favor of the current motion as stated, signify by saying aye by roll call. Joe?
Pearson.
Nay.
Because this could be close, I'm going to call every name. Carver County or Robgent? Okay, Laborie.
Nay.
Elos.
Aye.
Chad, I didn't hear a word. I heard.
Aye, yes.
Thank you. Isaacson. Lost him a while ago. Isaacson? All right, Jensen. Sorry, Craig, I thought I heard something, but I'm not sure what.
No.
Thank you. Dahlheimer.
No.
Witter. I think I heard no. If I did not, tell me I'm wrong. Thank you. Kotsukos.
Aye.
Henniker.
Yes.
Larson.
Aye.
Michael Larson.
Aye.
Harrington.
He left.
Haig.
Aye.
AO.
Aye.
Reef.
Aye.
Fighton.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Deed. Eddie. I haven't heard from you, but I'm calling all the names. Okay. Sabota.
No.
Let's see. I want to say Mackenzie was here and that she's not, and now we have an alternate. Scipione. Or maybe I was mixing you up with Kyle. Okay, we have nobody. Keel.
Nay.
Howley.
Aye.
Omi.
Nay.
Schultz.
Aye.
Lucher.
Aye.
Ruiz.
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Beckwith.
Nay.
Hager.
Aye.
Mayel.
Aye.
Peterson.
No.
And Dermody.
No.
Oh, man. All right, we have 26 votes. I'm guessing it's going to be 13 apiece.
Oh, there's a question in the chat while you're counting those up.
Well, 27 votes, actually. 15 to 11 ayes. The ayes seem to have it. We probably have a case study for our work group. So, thank you.
Okay, that item moves forward. Thank you, Deb, for coming and answering a lot of questions.
Thank you so much for your time today. And I just, again, thank you so much for your support. This project wouldn't be possible without your support. So.
All right, and that concludes the business from funding and programming and the action items for today, but we do have an information item. And Suri Simmons is here to talk about the Carbon Reduction Program Toolkit.
Thank you, Chair.
Siri, we didn't talk about this. Would you like to do your slides, or would you like me to?
If you're able to share mine, I would take you up on that. Thanks, Joe.
Okay. I might have. All right, give me a. I have the PDF up. I'll have to go grab the. Give me a second.
Okay. While you are pulling that up, I can go ahead and get started. My name is Siri Simons, and I'm the Sustainability Program Supervisor with MnDOT's Office of Sustainability and Public Health. And like Chair Hager mentioned, I'm here to provide an informational update on the Carbon Reduction Program Toolkit. So my presentation will cover the carbon reduction strategy that MnDOT recently submitted to the Federal Highways Administration, a reminder about how funds from the new carbon reduction program are distributed, and then an overview of the draft toolkit that we are going to share with our regional partners to help them select projects to receive carbon reduction program funds. So if you take anything away from my presentation today, the keys are that we have a new statewide plan called the Carbon Reduction Strategy. We, as a state, are receiving funds from a new federal program called the Carbon Reduction Program, and Met Council will have approximately $7 million annually from that program to select projects. And then MnDOT is preparing resources to help ensure that projects that are selected align with the new carbon reduction strategy. And Joe, would you prefer that I share my slides?
Nope, it doesn't matter. I think it's sharing successfully. Am I right?
So I'm seeing Jed's presentation. I'm not sure if others are seeing that as
well. I opened the wrong one. There's that. Sorry. Thanks for catching that. Why can't I find yours? Maybe I only have yours as a PDF.
That's fine. I've got it up, so I'm happy to just share on my end. That's probably easier.
Well, I can do it. I apologize for the.
No worries. Can you see? Oh, looks like we've got it up. All right, thank you. So we can, Joe, would you mind scrolling down to the next few slides? I kind of went over the overview, and then if you go to the next slide, you can cruise through that, and this is where we are. So the Carbon Reduction Program was established under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law back in 2021, and the purpose of the program is to reduce transportation emissions from on-road highway sources. And the way that this can be done is through developing a carbon reduction strategy, which Minnesota recently prepared, and I'll talk more about today, as well as selecting projects to receive funds. And Minnesota has done this really through our regional and local partners. And those partners will be able to continue using those funds to select projects in the years ahead. You can go to the next slide.
Okay. Thanks. No problem.
Thanks, Jason. So I mentioned the carbon reduction strategy and that we submitted it to federal highways. This was a requirement to continue to be able to receive the carbon reduction program funds. So this new plan sets priorities for reducing carbon emissions from transportation in our state. The priorities within it were identified based on our existing studies and plans, including the 2022 statewide multimodal transportation plan, the 2022 climate action framework that the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency prepared, and then the 2019 Pathways to Decarbonization report, which is something that MnDOT put together a couple of years ago. And then our team also conducted engagement to help identify the priorities that are established in the carbon reduction strategy. So there are three overarching categories of priority strategies. They include electrification, travel options, and low carbon infrastructure. And then each of those broad categories includes strategies and project types. And I'll talk about those today. And going forward, all CRP investments have to align with the priorities in the carbon reduction strategy. So this is sort of new for our state because we didn't have this carbon reduction strategy in the initial years that we were able to spend the funds. All right, so the first category that I mentioned is electrification, and you can see that the strategies in this category include installing electric vehicle or zero emission vehicle charging infrastructure, purchasing or leasing electric vehicles or zero emission vehicles, as well as supporting electric vehicle and zero emission vehicles through outreach and education. Under each of these strategies, there are project types, and I won't get into that level of detail today, but just want to flag that if you look at our carbon reduction strategy, that level of detail is there. An example of a project type in this category would be installing electric vehicle charging stations. Next slide, please. The second category of strategies is travel options. So you can see there's a number of different strategies in this category. They range from installing and maintaining infrastructure for biking, walking, and rolling improvements, planning and designing infrastructure that improves the ability for people to walk, bike, and roll, implementing context-sensitive design for travel options, as well as adding high-capacity transit options and adding city regional public transit options, as well as implementing travel demand management. So again, there's a number of specific project types that are called out in the strategy, but they very much align with the strategies that you see listed here. Next slide. And then the third and final category of strategies is low carbon infrastructure and system management. So under this category, strategies include optimizing transportation system management and operations, using low carbon methods for constructing and maintaining transportation infrastructure, and supporting renewable energy generation. So an example of a project type in this category would be signal timing improvements or installing solar panels on the right of way. Next slide, please. In addition to the categories, strategies, and project types that are listed in the carbon reduction strategy, we also have these project evaluation criteria. And so these criteria are to be used to select projects that would receive funding from the carbon reduction program. And they were established to build off of the foundation of policies and plans that we have in our state. So of course, when we're talking about reducing carbon, we should be selecting projects that cost effectively reduce carbon emissions. But also we should be looking for some co-benefits, like projects that enhance equity or support equity, projects that support safety as well as access and health. And so I'll be talking about how our toolkit applies these criteria or allows entities selecting projects to apply these criteria in their evaluation process. And we'll have some quantitative, sort of a quantitative scoring rubric. Certainly, if different entities want to adjust the weight of the scores in that rubric, we at MnDOT would support that. The important thing that I'll keep coming back to is just that moving forward, now that we have this carbon reduction strategy, it's important for any project selection process to align with that new strategy. Next slide, please. All right. So I want to just touch on how the funding from the carbon reduction program is distributed. Annually, MnDOT is receiving about $20 million a year. And this new program has legislation that suballocates the funds. So 35% of the carbon reduction program funds can be spent anywhere in the state. That's about $7.3 million annually. So that money will be distributed by MnDOT districts. And then the remaining funds, some of them will be distributed through metropolitan planning organizations, and then some of them are to be used in rural areas. So we've elected to distribute those funds through area transportation partnerships in Minnesota. I think the key takeaway for this group is that Met Council will have about $7 million annually for the duration of the carbon reduction program to select projects with. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to describe the toolkit. I know there's a couple other items on your agenda today, so I'll try to kind of go efficiently through this content. MnDOT is preparing a toolkit to help regional partners select projects in a way that aligns with the carbon reduction strategy. So what we can provide is the toolkit. It will be available in February. And then the idea is that MPOs and area transportation partnerships will be able to use a template solicitation that we offer to solicit projects, and then the scoring criteria in the toolkit to review those projects. Met Council is a little bit different because you have the regional solicitation process, and that's more robust than what most MPOs and ATPs have. So it's quite possible that what we share in the toolkit would guide later years of project selection for the carbon reduction program, potentially 2027 and 2028 funding. So I just want to call that out. We can go to the next slide. The toolkit will offer a sample application that has a couple different parts. The first part will assess project readiness. So our template application will ask applicants to describe their project, provide milestones related to the project, so that the selection committee can understand project readiness. And this will be used as an initial screening criteria that will determine whether or not projects can move forward to the future stages of review. Next slide. The second part of our template application in the toolkit is this carbon emissions tool. So the tool is spreadsheet based. It integrates methodologies that are peer reviewed and state of the art when it comes to emissions analysis from different project types. And so applicants can use this spreadsheet to identify their project type, navigate to a tab in the spreadsheet related to that project type, input some information, and then receive the results in terms of greenhouse gas emissions reduction from their project. And in my next few slides, I'll share examples of how this tool will work. So we can go to the next slide. So this is an example of how the tool works for a bikeway engineering project. The applicant would navigate to the project type that's called construct or improve the bicycle network. They would then input specific details about their project, and they're able to use some defaults if they would like, or adjust those defaults to provide information that's very sort of specific to their project. So in this example, we're looking at a roadway that currently has about 12,500 trips. The applicant would specify that it's an off-road trail facility. It's over 2 miles. It is within a quarter of a mile of 7 key destinations, and then it's in an area with a population of less than 250,000. And then the tool would show the first year emissions reduction, the cumulative emissions reduction. The applicant would enter their project cost, and then they would find out the cost effectiveness of their project. You can go to the next slide. And I think for time, Joe, I'll just go ahead and skip over this example because I want to talk briefly about co-benefits and then have a minute or two for feedback if there's time. So then the third part of the application is some questions related to the co-benefits of the project. And these align with the criteria that I shared earlier. So there's a question asking about how the project advances equity. There are 4 tools that are available to applicants to indicate whether or not the project supports a disadvantaged community. So they can use the Justice 40 tool that's available, or one of the other 3 tools that are listed. And this we decided to do in response to some concerns that the Justice 40 tool doesn't fully capture all of the disadvantaged communities in Minnesota. And we have some good alternatives that have been used to identify disadvantaged communities for other MnDOT projects. You can go to the next slide, please. The applicant can also answer a safety question. So we ask how the project enhances or improves safety concerns. We ask the applicant to connect their response to any local planning documents or tools that identify safety issues, and we offer the space tool as a resource. Next slide, please. There's also an access question. So we ask how the project improves access for non-motorized or transit users, as well as if it improves travel efficiency. And next slide, please. And then the last question is about health, asking how the project enhances health in terms of improving localized air quality or addressing some criteria of pollutants, which would be listed in the application along with the EJ screen tool. Next slide. So this is a scoring rubric that would be included in the toolkit. Each of the co-benefits could be scored on a scale of 0 to 5, and with 0 being the project doesn't demonstrate a connection to the co-benefits, and 5 being the project shows outstanding connection to the co-benefit through documentation. Next slide. So to recap what our toolkit provides, it provides a template application where the applicant offers a brief narrative description of project readiness, a quantitative cost effectiveness of greenhouse gas emissions reduction from the project, and then 4 brief narratives describing the co-benefits of their project. Then the project selection committee can use that information to rank the projects based on their cost effectiveness of greenhouse gas emissions or the co-benefits, and then develop a combined score that looks at both that greenhouse gas emissions, the cost effectiveness of greenhouse gas emissions reduction and the co-benefits. Next slide. So I recognize I went through that fairly quickly and that you have 1 or 2 more agenda items to go through, but I will stand for a question or 2 if we have time. Otherwise, I welcome any feedback on our toolkit via email, and we will come back to the council with a final toolkit in February. And I believe we would be sharing that toolkit with both the TAC and the TAB.
Thank you, Suri. And I'll just note the time. We're coming up on 11. And I do think actually this is our last agenda item for today. I don't think, unless I'm wrong, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is it. So are there any questions or comments for Suri on this information item? Go ahead, Carl.
So Siri, you had kind of implied that, or you acknowledged that we have a fairly robust solicitation process. Were you anticipating that we would use that same process for these funds and kind of go through the format of our application, or would we utilize the toolkit application?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it is up to the council and the TAB and the TAC in terms of how this toolkit could be used. I think you could do either option. If you move forward with using the regional solicitation, we would emphasize that going forward, projects selected for carbon reduction program funding need to align with the carbon reduction strategy. So if the solicitation sort of allows that to occur as is, then you could certainly move forward with the regional solicitation. If you prefer to do a separate solicitation using the toolkit, I think that's an option. So it seems like more discussion would be needed about the pros and cons of either creating a separate solicitation or incorporating perhaps some additional criteria into the regional solicitation to help identify CRP projects.
Ask a follow-up on Carl's question then, and I don't know, Suri, if this is for you or Met Council staff, but then is there CRP funds that are being allocated with this current solicitation that the application process just closed for? Or seems like we have kind of a difference in timing on the solicitation in this toolkit.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that may be a question for Met Council staff in terms of if there is an existing plan to allocate CRP funds to projects that are coming through the current regional solicitation that just closed.
Steve's not here today, so we might have to follow up with Steve later unless Elaine or Joe or Cole, you might know.
Off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure. I know with the last solicitation, the council did award some funding with the carbon reduction funds, but we may have gone out far enough with that funding. But that's the unknown. So there may be some looking forward, or we may be waiting to hold that money till the next solicitation when the eval to figure out how to distribute it.
Can we park that question and get Steve to respond to that when he returns? Carl, I see your hand back up. Did you want to follow up on your initial?
Oh, yeah, I guess these are probably more detailed questions than we need, but I presume these are federal dollars, and do they have to follow the same NEPA requirements and all the other requirements of a federal transportation project, or do they have looser requirements, I guess is my question.
They are federal dollars, and so they do need to follow the same requirements as other federal transportation money. But in some cases, the requirements might be sort of light. So for example, with a charging station, that can go through a categorical exclusion process for NEPA. And so it's much more streamlined than what you would see on a larger transportation construction project on a roadway, for example.
Thank you.
Innocent.
Yes, Madam Chair. Sarah, I just wanted to, you say you submitted the Minnesota strategies to Federal Highway Administration. Do they have to give an approval or have access to kind of review and provide maybe some modifications to what we submitted?
They do still need to approve the plan that we submitted, so it's considered a draft. We're not expecting substantial or requests for changes at this point, and we don't have a date for when they would be providing feedback yet.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Suri. And I'm not seeing any other hands. We're starting to lose a couple members, so I think we're good. Thank you for the presentation today. I really appreciate it. It was a long wait to get there on the agenda, so thank you for your patience. So we will move to other business. Are there any announcements from members today?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is Innocent Teo with the MPCA. I just wanted to make some announcement. Probably most of you who've been here for a while knew Susan Spitzer. She was a long staff member with the MPCA, and she was also a member of TAG planning, TAG, and funding and programming for many years. Suzanne passed away on December 17 of last month from Lewy body dementia, and funeral ceremony was done on December 20th. So she had moved from Twin Cities to New Haven in Connecticut to be close to the family. That's where she passed after a tough months with the disease. So I just wanted to let people know, especially a lot of the staff that knew Suzanne. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for sharing that, Innocent. Joe, Elaine.
Thanks, Chair. Heidi actually wanted to say something about the TZD. If you could give her a second.
Yeah, go ahead, Heidi.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just for transparency purposes, I had put additional information in the chat, so I just wanted to verbalize what was in the chat since we were streaming this as well. there's a question about the strategic highway safety plan update, and I dropped a link in the chat. The Minnesota Towards Zero Deaths website, minnesotatzd.org, includes a link to presentation that was given to the State Advisory Council on Traffic Safety at their December meeting, and that just included the overall timeline for the update of the strategic highway safety plan. So they're doing data analysis now. We'll have to do input from the plan gathered in spring and summer this year. Focus area priorities and strategies will be done this fall. There'll be a comment period December of this year through March of next year, and then MnDOT plans to finalize it in April of next year. So just wanted to verbalize what was in the chat.
Great, thank you for that. Go ahead, Elaine.
Just an announcement that I have set up or scheduled an orientation meeting for the initial meeting for our newest appointed tab members. There'll probably be another one following it as I get more members assigned or appointed. So the first one is January 12th at 11:30 to 1 o'clock. And I'm scheduling it for an hour and a half. Sometimes it goes an hour and a half. So if there's any of our TAC members or other committee members, I'll have Joe send out a email announcing the date and time, and to let me know if you want to attend that. It's going to be virtual. So, and then I will send that formal virtual invite to you.
Great, thank you, Elaine.
As for any new committee members over the next year, or anybody who's been here for a while and wants a refresher, and coming forward, we are going through a lot of items coming through these committees. So there'll be a lot of information dumped for our new people, especially, but a good refresher for anyone else.
Any other announcements by committee members for today? Seeing none, then we stand adjourned. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you.